So welcome everyone, we're glad you're here joining us. This is CTA's Red Purple Modernization public meeting. This is the third of 4 sessions that we're having this week in preparation for the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr modernization project, which is entering a new phase, a new start, a new impacts to the community and to CTA service soon. So of course, this is for the Argyle Station. So we're excited to be here as an RPM team to be engaging and telling you what you need to know for this project as it pertains to the Argyle stop and the community surrounding that stop. So my name is Jesse Thomas. I'll be moderating this session. We'll be having a presentation and then doing a question and answer session afterwards. So when we get to that point, I will be explaining how the question and answers will work. Basically, we'll be going through some of the registration questions that people have already submitted, and then open it up to live questions and answers from a panel of experts that we've brought with us here tonight. So a couple other logistical things. First, welcome everyone who's on Facebook Live. I'm glad you're joining us from that platform as well. And then also this meeting is being recorded. So we will be posting this and sending it out to everyone who registered if you couldn't make it to watch the recording. There is closed captioning being provided by the Zoom app. So if you want to turn that on or off, just down in the Zoom panel down at the bottom of the app, there's a place to do that where it says live captions. So we are going to move on to our presentation portion. This is going to be a follow-up from earlier town hall meetings that we had for the larger Lawrence to Bryn Mawr audience back in March, where we went over a lot of the community impacts and service impacts to customers who use CTA, and then also the mitigations that are being used in this project to help lessen those impacts. So we'll be going over that more in detail for the Argyle Station and then the surrounding community. And then, of course, like I mentioned, going to the Q&A after that. So to get us kicked off on the presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Wilson. He is the Director of Government and Community Relations for the CTA RPM project, and he will get us started on the presentation. Jeff?
Thank you, Jesse. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Cinco de Mayo. Before we do get started, I'd like to extend a huge gratitude and thank you to the 48th Ward staff who are in attendance tonight. Dan Lennon, Alan Alita, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate all the work and effort that you assist CTA and Walsh Ford with getting the outreach done for this huge project, the Red Purple Modernization Project. So tonight, as Jesse said, we're going to talk about the Argyle Station. The Argyle Station, as you're going to see in this next slide. Next slide, please. The Argyle Station is going to be fully accessible when we're done in 2024. It's going to have modern elevators and escalators. And we're also going to be rebuilding and rehabilitating the track, signal system, and embankment structure. Next slide, please. So as you can see from this slide, this 100-year-old structure is in dire need of a rebuild. As many of you can attest to, the columns that are currently in this picture, this is a current view actually, stand in the way of sight lines. It creates a dark and uncomfortable setting for both pedestrians and customers for the CTA. By the end of 2024, you're going to have a brand new modern piece of infrastructure, as I just said, that will blend very nicely into the streetscape as well as the surrounding area, as you'll see in this next slide. And here we have the beautiful rendering of what the Argyle Station will become by 2024. As you can see in this rendering, there's a lot of homage being paid to the cultural iconography, excuse me, of the Asian culture. As you can see, there's red and the lighting itself. When we're done with this project in 2024, there's going to be additional bike racks, as you can see on the left side of your screen, as well as more lighting, open and airy, and larger windows to create a more safer and inviting environment. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, this is the auxiliary exit. There are, on the right side of your screen, you'll see additional bike racks. The CTA has paid special attention to adding these bike racks so that more customers have access to the CTA. As you can see here, the columns have been eliminated from the middle of the street, and the aesthetic lighting has been put above, and it reflects off the bottom of the your screen on the street. And the station exits are more open, and the lighting in the station itself is brighter. And you can see on the top of the screen the new signage and wayfinding that they've added to help with customer information, as well as getting to information about your train. Next slide, please. So I want to take a moment to talk about the timeline. So the project timeline, as you can see on your screen, from 2019 until the beginning of this year, we've been doing pre-stage work. The pre-stage work that we've done has a lot to do with eliminating the utilities that are below grade to get them out of the way in order for us to begin doing the actual construction itself. And as you may have heard in previous meetings, May 16th, this upcoming May 16th, is the beginning of our Stage A process. Stage A process is where we actually start the work in demolishing the embankment and putting the new track structure in. It's important to note that this project, during the Stage A, the northbound trains on the east side of the track are going to be closed, and we're going to flip everything to the westbound side. And then that'll be the process from the May 16th through basically the beginning of 2023, where we start the Stage B process. And the Stage B process just flips that through the end of this project. Next slide, please. So here you'll see what I was just talking about. The east half of the tracks, or the northbound tracks, are going to be shut down so that we can do the construction. A barrier is going to be placed in between the east half and the west half of the tracks, right down the middle, so that we can stabilize the west half of the tracks in order to run service. And then the east half of the tracks will be our construction site. And that'll be through the end of 2023. Next slide, please. So what you can expect is the temporary Argyle Station entrance will be open to provide the Redline access throughout the construction. You've probably seen a lot of the workers there doing prepping for that right now. The eastern two Redline and Purple Line tracks, the Howard bound tracks, will be closed for reconstruction, and trains rerouted to the western tracks. Next slide, please. So here you see what to expect within the next 6 months. First, we're going to be demolishing that 100-year-old structure, like I said earlier. And then we have to drill the new foundation track work. So the new foundations to support the track work are the caissons you see in the middle of the screen being dug. That will allow us to build the new tracks to support the structure. Next slide, please. So in order to do that, we have to demolish that 100-year-old structure, like I said. That's demolishing the tracks and the structure. We're going to be demolishing 11 viaducts over the cross streets, partial demolition of the east side embankment wall. They're going to build and install access ramps so they allow the equipment to be transferred up to the track level of the CTA right away. This is a process that will help minimize the intrusion of the construction that's going to be taking place in the neighborhood and surrounding area. The barrier that's going to be built in the middle of the tracks will allow train service to be run safely on 2 tracks, as I mentioned earlier, on the west side. There is going to be significant impacts with this work. This will be noisy and very disruptive, but CTA is working very hard with both the community, the stakeholders, and the 48th Ward to make sure that Walsh Fluor mitigates as much as possible of that moving forward. The demo work that's going to be around the Argyle Station is expected to start at Foster and late this summer and be completed on Ainsley in fall of 2021. Next slide, please. So here you see the building of foundation of new track structure equipment. These deep track foundation shafts will be drilled into the existing embankment and filled with concrete. These foundation shafts are approximately 60 to 80 feet deep. The new concrete columns for the new red line and purple line track structure will be built on that. The track foundation and column construction work around Argyle is expected to start at Foster in 2021, and as I said earlier, be completed in the spring of 2022. Next slide, please. And here what we have is the gantry. The gantry is a unique and innovative way to build this structure with the least amount of construction impacts into the community. This is about as long as a football field. And what this does is allow CTA and the contractor, Welsh Floor, to bring in these segmented box girders that you see on your screen, lift them up, and then string them together to form the foundations of the track itself. CTA is going to be coming back out to the community, specifically this summer, later this summer, to talk to you about what the gantry does, how it will be moved in, and how the structure itself is going to be built by using the gantry system. Very excited about this. Next slide, please. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce my friend and colleague, Tammy Chase. Tammy Chase is the Director of Communications for CTA, specifically for the RPM project itself. Tammy, take it away.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Jeff, for that introduction. I'm happy to be here with you tonight, and I'm going to walk you through the impacts to the community and to CTA service during construction. We tonight are going to try to give you we will give you as much information as we have in terms of what you can expect and in terms of timing of what you can expect. But please know we will continue to be out in the community providing you with new information as we get it. So let's start by talking about the impacts in the area around Argyle, which we're defining for this meeting as Foster to Ainsley. There will be significant noise and vibration, as you can imagine, with this kind of heavy civil construction work. We will also have a number of street closures as well as alley closures on the east side of our tracks behind Winthrop Avenue. And that's all the way from north from Thorndale down to Leland Avenue. We'll talk more about those in a minute. There will be a lot of construction equipment, truck traffic coming in and out of your community. They will use city approved routes, but do expect that equipment. There will be dust from construction, and we will have traffic lane closures as well as some occasional sidewalk closures throughout the stage A. So mitigations. So these are the things that the contractor has committed to doing with CTA to lessen the impact that it has on the community as much as we can while still building this project. So street sweeping and dust reduction are huge priorities. We want to keep your community clean. So the contractor will be working hard to do that while performing construction. The contractor will also make sure to do the noisiest activities during the daytime hours as much as possible. In addition, the contractor has a number of tools at their disposal that they can use to lessen the impact, muffle some of that noise, including sound blankets and noise barriers. In addition, we'll continue to do rodent abatement as we always do with all CTA projects. Next slide, please. So let's focus on impacts to alleys between Foster and Ainsley. Because of the type of construction, because garages are located so close to our tracks, it's unavoidable that we will have to block people's garages and parking spots. We'll do that as little as possible, but unfortunately there will be a number of inaccessible periods. So let's talk about daily alley closures first. That's basically what it says, just 7 a.m. to 5 to 7 p.m. in the evening, so the resident would be able to get back into their garage later that night. We expect those in this area to start late summer of this year through fall of next year. We will also have extended alley closures in this area, which 24/7 overnight. About about 4 to 6 weeks per block, working from the north end to the south. That would be in the fall into early 2022 to build those track foundations that Jeff described for you earlier. In addition, there will be extended alley closures associated with the actual new track construction, about 3 to 4 days per garage, working from north and south again. Spring 2022, we expect that work to start to go into late summer 2022. Next slide, please. All right, so we've talked about alley impacts, and please know that what we tell you tonight, there'll be more follow-up information coming. We will continue to post our construction activity notices online, on your garages, through construction alert, subscriber alerts about our construction project that many of you already email and get. If you don't, we'll tell you how to get those tonight later in this presentation. So there'll be a number of street closures. It's unavoidable because we have track structure crossing side streets as well as commercial streets. So we will talk about those more in detail now. Next slide, please. So these street closures are necessary, obviously, to get the work done, but it's also to keep vehicles, drivers, as well as pedestrians safe. So please know that when we do these, we are doing these to get the work done, but also keep everyone safe. So starting with Foster Avenue, we expect to have 2 weekend-only closures in the fall for bridge work as well as, bridge demolition as well as track foundation work. There also will be occasional parking lane closures, sidewalk closures associated with this work. Next slide, please. There will be some extensive closures on Winona Avenue, starting in the early summer for the demolition work. Again, in the fall for some more demo work. We'll have parking lane closures, sidewalk closures associated with this work as well throughout. Next slide, please. Talking about Argyle Avenue, because Argyle does so much retail activity on the weekends with the local shops, we will not do weekend closures there. We will do 2 weekday closures. Those will be Monday evening through late Thursday, early fall to end of 2022. This is again for demolition work and building the new track foundations. Similar impacts to parking lanes, sidewalks as well associated with this work. Next slide, please. And finally, on Ainsley Avenue, we'll have extended street closures there as well, midsummer, as well as back again in the fall for track demolition, bridge demolition, similar impacts with parking lane and sidewalk closures to get the work done as well as keep people safe during the construction. Next, please. So we've talked quite a bit about the community impacts and of course impacts to people whose garages are affected. So I'd like to turn this now over to my colleague, Marcy Jensen from Walsh Floor, who can talk about alternative parking locations for people who cannot access their garage. Marcy?
Thank you, Tammy. I'm Marcy Jensen, Community Outreach for Walsh Floor. Stage A construction will intermittently block parking for residents on the west side of Winthrop from Leland to Thorndale who park along the tracks. Walsh Floor is providing alternate parking during these interruptions. The locations of our alternate parking lots are pictured on the slide. Some alleys will be closed on a daily basis from 7 to 5, and residents will have access to their own parking at the end of the day. And sometimes even during the day, we may block only a portion of the alley for a very small portion of the day. Some alleys will be closed on an extended basis. There will be one long interruption of about 4 to 6 weeks per alley. And there will be a couple other 24/7 interruptions of about 3 to 4 days. Tammy described this earlier, per garage, working from north to south. Affected residents whose blocking is intermittently parked can use our parking app to secure one of these free alternate parking spaces. If you are an affected resident, contact me for information about how to access the parking app and our alternate parking. And my contact information is right there on the slide. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Marcy. And please know that, again, there'll be a time for questions and answers at the end of this presentation. So we've talked a lot about community impacts. And so now we're going to turn to service impacts, what you can expect during construction in terms of accessing the red line and bus service. One of the things that we committed to early on with this project is that we would continue to offer red and purple line service throughout construction. We're pleased to be able to do that. It does present challenges. This is why the project goes longer than if we did not have, we had ceased service, but we would not do that. It's not, the city is just too dependent on this transit. So we're continuing that. In terms of impacts to the Argyle station, we will have red line access at Argyle. We have been building a temporary station entrance that is just a few feet west of the current entrance that is used by customers today. So that will be available to our customers starting on May 16th. And then on that same day, we close the original station house for demolition and reconstruction. And the new Argyle station will open in 2024. Next slide, please. So turning to stage B, we've spent this entire presentation talking about stage A, which is immediate and happening, but we do want to remind folks that there is a stage B to this project that would start in late 2022 and run through 2024 when we would complete the Argyle station. During stage B, what you can expect is that the temporary Argyle station entrance will actually be relocated to Winona and Foster Avenues. Both entrances will accommodate northbound and southbound service. Sorry, it's been a long day. So we will have more information about that as we get closer to stage B. And as my colleague Jeff mentioned, during stage B, we will be reconstructing the other two 100-year-old tracks to complete the full track reconstruction work. And again, Argyle, the new station, bright, shiny behind me, will open at the end of 2024. Next slide. With that, I'm going to turn this back over to my colleague, Jesse Thomas, sorry. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tammy. All right, yeah, so we just wanted to finish this presentation with making sure you knew how to stay informed and stay in touch. You're obviously here and engaged with us at this meeting, but we want to continue that as questions or concerns arise. So we have a few links up here. We'll be sending out these as well to people who registered and who attended. So if you don't screen grab or write them down or whatever you do, but I'll go over them real quick so you know what they're for. The top one there, transitchicago.com/updates, that will give you the alerts to service that for the whole system, but also for RPM. So you can know as a CTA customer what impacts may be happening. And of course, we have our own RPM website as well. So transitchicago.com/RPM. This is where it's a repository of all kinds of information about the project, and definitely recommend going there if you'd like to learn more about it. We have our email address as well. Real Life Person checks that every day. So if you have questions or concerns, please email us. We will get back to you. We'll do our best to get a good answer for you. And then, as was mentioned before, we have our construction alert system. So we highly recommend signing up for this if you are not already. So transitchicago.com/RPM alerts. You sign up with a form. You can customize the locations you're interested in, whether it's you live or work in along the RPM affected area, along the red and purple lines. You can enter that information and then get alerts based on that location for construction that's happening or impacts that are going on in the neighborhood. So we really recommend you sign up for that. And then once again, our email and our phone numbers as well, you can call us. So please do stay in touch with us. And finally, we have our social media channels. So we can go on to the next slide. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. There we go. And that's our handle, CTA RPM. So please follow us. We try and add a lot of color to the project. There's a lot of interesting and amazing, honestly amazing construction activities that are happening. And the engineering's fascinating. So keep an eye on those just to learn more about that. And then of course, the more practical side of the alerts and impacts, as well as information about the neighborhoods that we are working in, businesses that are worth supporting. So please follow us. Okay, so we are going to end the presentation portion of our meeting and move on to our question and answers. So I'll be leading this, and I'm going to actually ask all of those who are on our panel to turn on your cameras. We're all going to be shown here. Great. So this is a panel full of experts from the contractor, Walsh Floor, and then CTA. We are here to answer questions that have already been submitted and then live ones as well. So we're going to be starting with some questions that you as registrants submitted. We selected the ones that we thought were most helpful for the group. And I will be going through a few of those and directing them to our panel. At that point, we'll go to live questions where if you would like to ask a question, go down to the reactions tab in the Zoom app. There's a raise hand button. You can raise your hand. Then I will see that you'd like to raise or like to ask a question. And I will call on you and we'll unmute you. You can turn on your camera if you'd like and ask a question. We ask that you keep it brief, just one question per person, or one question at a time, I should say. And we'll be ending at 7 o'clock. If we don't have time to get to all the questions, don't worry, we will be going through all of them, posting them afterwards. So if you have a question that we don't have time to get to, please put it in our chat function, the Zoom chat, and we will get to those after. So I will move on to the actual questions. So the first couple questions I'm going to be directing to the contractor, Walsh Floor. And as the panel members are talking for the first time, please introduce yourself so that we can know who everybody is. Okay, so the first question, and I believe I'm going to Rob for these, right? So Rob, the first question, will Argyle ever be closed on weekends?
Hi, I'm Rob Cheeseman with Walsh Floor. I'm the construction manager for the LBMM portion of the project. Argyle's a unique case, as Tammy mentioned. Most of our cross streets closures happen on the weekends for major cross streets. Argyle, on the other hand, does do the week. Instead of weekend closures, it's 56-hour closures during the middle of the week. So we avoid the weekend traffic on Argyle.
All right, thanks, Rob. Next question, are you keeping with your projected timeline or has the pandemic altered completion dates?
No, fortunately we've powered through and we're still holding our end goals for the completion of the project with stations being open in 2024.
Great, thank you. For this one, I'm gonna send this one over to Stephen. How many stations are being worked on at any one time?
Yeah, hi, my name is Stephen Specht. I'm the stations project manager for Walsh Floor. And so the short answer is all 4. So during stage A, we'll be working on only 2 temporary stations at Bryn Mawr and Argyle to use while in stage B. And no work will be done on the permanent stations during stage A, but during stage B, we'll be working on all 4 permanent stations simultaneously. So the work's going to be staggered with construction starting at Bryn Mawr and finishing at Lawrence, but there's going to be considerable overlap between all 4 stations, and then they'll all be open to the public at the completion of stage B.
Great, thank you, Stephen. All right, we're going to turn to CTA for the next few questions that were submitted by registrants. So first ones I'll send over to Jeff Wilson. How will the existing public art piece at the Argyle Station be preserved and reused?
Great question, Jesse. So the existing artwork is actually going to be recreated by the artists that did the original work. Because of the difficulty in which the original art piece was installed, what we're going to try to do is save as much of it as possible and turn it back over to the community. But the artist actually is going to recreate that piece and reinstall it in the new station, along with new artwork that we're going to commission. So stay tuned for all that. Super excited about that.
Okay, next question is, will the construction include handicapped accessibility?
For the new station house, absolutely. So all of the 4 stations that we're rebuilding will be accessible. That is a commitment that's been made by the mayor of the city, Mayor Lightfoot, as well as the president of the CTA, Dorval Carter. It is at the forefront of what CTA is doing moving forward with station reconstruction. So we're very proud of that.
All right, and one more, Jeff. This is going back to art. Will there be opportunities for placemaking and public art?
Absolutely. So stay tuned for when we start to roll out the art program as part of the 4-station rebuild. And if you haven't already, please provide contact information to or register your email or sign up for the alerts. And we'll make sure that when the art public meetings happen, we're going to get you involved. We would love the community feedback on that. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jeff. The next, we've got, let's see, 4 more, and I'm going to send these last 4 to Tammy Chase. So this one is, the 36 bus is already crowded and slow. How are you going to address this during construction over the next 3 years?
So it's a great question because the number 36 is an important route connecting all 4 stations during construction, of course, and beyond. So we've been meeting regularly with our service planners is what we call them at CTA, to look at ridership levels, look at what we expect ridership levels to be during construction. So at this time, I mean, we're monitoring it very carefully. We're not changing the number of 36 buses that will be out there just yet, but as we do with all major construction projects, you know, there's what we expect to happen, and then there's when the actual construction happens, and then we monitor the actual time, you know, the real-time activity. If ridership picks up, if buses become more crowded, we would look at adding service or adjusting the frequency of service. So it's something we're watching very.
Okay. The next question is, will there be a decrease in Redline runs? If yes, what will the new average time be between trains at peak hours?
So we're going to continue to run the Redline service that we are currently running right now. Obviously, it's at a COVID level. It's not at the pre-COVID level. We'll, again, as we do with bus service, we'll monitor the Redline service to see how if ridership is affected one way or another. I can tell you that we expect trips between Howard and Belmont on the Redline to be about a minute or 2 extra, so a modest increase at best. With Purple Line, we think that would be more about 4 to 6 minutes Howard to Belmont. So we are advising our customers, as we typically do with any construction, you know, plan ahead, allow a little extra time.
Okay, these next 2 are back to buses. How will bus transportation to and from Argyle Station work?
So it will work as it does today. The Broadway bus obviously provides a connection at Argyle for customers who are transferring to the Redline or transferring from the Redline to bus. So that will not change.
Okay. And the final question is, will there be additional free bus or shuttles to take people to the stations that are closed?
No, we're not doing bus shuttles. We think that the number 36 Broadway provides the adequate connections that are needed for all of the stations from Bryn Mawr down to Wilson, which is where we are recommending some of our Lawrence passengers go to use when Lawrence is closed. So at this time, no, we don't have plans for shuttles.
Okay, thanks, Tammy. All right, well, we're going to open it up then. If anyone here has a question for this panel of experts on the RPM project, please use that reaction button down in your Zoom app, and I will call on you. Don't see any that are there right now. I will give it a minute. Okay, I see one that came up, Michael Cook. We can ask you to unmute. Feel free to show your video if you'd like, and you can go ahead.
Hi, will there be any form of like protection from the wind when you're standing on the platform? Right now, when you're on the platform at Argyle, it gets super windy, and I'm just wondering, like, do the new platforms have any kind of wind or weather protection built into them?
Okay, Chris, I see you nodding your head. Do you want to take that one? If you nod, I'm going to call on you.
Fine. No, that's good. Yeah, the new platforms will not only be wider, have better sight lines, but more comfortable positions, and we'll have windbreaks as well as people heaters there. So it will be a modern platform, similar in general configuration, not quite the same stations. Wilson is a much bigger station, but the types of windbreaks and the configuration of the windbreaks will be similar. So in general, the platform is a much nicer, will be a much nicer place to be, offer greater protection, greater sight lines, more comfort in moving around the various features that are going to be up on the platform. So that is mostly to accommodate the addition to the elevators and accessibility in general, but it is of significant, it's a significant improvement in convenience and safety to every customer that we serve as well.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. Joe Maciek, if I'm saying that right, I'll ask you to unmute and go ahead.
Great, thank you. I just had a question about the current Asia and Argyle structure, if it's going to be just completely replaced with the new design, since it doesn't really fit the new aesthetic. Just curious of what's happening with that and if it will be decommissioned completely.
Sure, I'll send it to
Take that
Jeff.
if you want.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, good to see and hear you, or actually hear you on here. So we're actually working with Alderman Osterman's office, the 48th Ward office, to have that Asia and Argyle sign moved. Right now, we're still talking with CDOT, the Chicago Department of Transportation, but it will not be a part of the new station. It'll be moved away from the station. The two aesthetics just clash too much, but the Alderman's office and stakeholders do want to repurpose that sign somewhere on Argyle with help from CDOT. So stay tuned.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Next hand I see raised is Katie Anthony. Ask you to unmute and go ahead.
So my understanding is one of the particularly loud parts of the process is the driving of sheet pile. So I was just wondering about how long that stage of the process takes and when you think it might be starting.
Sure, I'll send that over to the Walsh floor team and maybe give a little background for those who don't know what that is.
Yeah, I can take that one, Jesse. So the sheet pile, as Jeff mentioned early on, is part of that barrier we have to put in between the under construction tracks and the live tracks. And that's to keep the existing tracks in the position they're at. That's going to be starting here as soon as we get into stage. So that'll be around June 1st where we start that activity up at Ardmore. We'll have two crews heading south, and we're hoping that pile driving operation will be done here in about 4 or 5 months. So in any given block, it should only be there hopefully a couple of weeks.
And I'll also note that this contract is somewhat unique among contracts, at least in the city of Chicago, with having limitations on the noise that the contractor can generate. As we've talked about in previous presentations, that noise is approximately the same level of existing trains. And the contractor has done a test installation of this pile driving up on the north of our Howard Street terminal to verify they can achieve those noise limits. And we have also extensive experience in the area of Thorndale installing that sheet piling because we had to do it to facilitate some track work in that area. So as Rob said, it will move relatively quickly through any given block, and it will have some limitations on it during the daytime hours as well. Again, kind of a unique feature of this contract, at least among other large infrastructure projects in the city of Chicago.
All right, thank you. All right, I see people moving their hands going up and down a little bit. Next one up that I see is Norma. Norma, I'll ask you to unmute. You can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for this, all of the information and the updates and everything. So my question tonight is a little bit more just about design and aesthetics. I really appreciated hearing about the art, the public art and the recreation of what's there now by the same artist. That's really terrific since it can't exactly be moved. But I guess I would just sort of ask, I mean, it's not so much a question, but a comment, if there can continue to be awareness about design that fits better with the neighborhood, because it's really modern. A lot of the updated amenities are great, but it's just completely generic with the other modern stations. And it just losing some of that community connection, both in terms of the art, the architecture, and and the sign. If that can be along the way, that design can be concerns can be taken into account, that'd be great.
Someone want to take that either side?
Yeah, I can make one comment on that specific to the Argyle Station. We are reusing the historic pilasters that are currently on the front of the station. So while there are a lot of modern elements involved in the new station, we're also trying to take a piece from the old stations.
Okay. Any other comments about it?
Yeah, I'll suggest one other thing too. The designer for this station took a lot of consideration, less than some of the obvious cues. I mean, we're certainly pleased to integrate the pilasters into the existing pilasters, the historic pilasters into the new station. But there are subtle things that they did as well that I think are important at the end of the day. And as this station becomes part of the streetscape in the neighborhood, which have to do with the scale and the rhythm of the building. The design architect, which is a noted architect here in the city, EXP, looked a lot at the adjacent buildings and their particular size and configuration, and based many of the proportions of the new stations on those elements. Granted, the new station is higher, allows more light to come in, but that's really more of a positive feature than one that would reflect any particular architectural style. So while it might be a little more modern than some of the other buildings, it does look to them for many of its influences relative to size, rhythm of some of the architectural elements and so forth. So I just wanted to point that out. That's not easy to see in a drawing. I really believe it'll become much more evident as the station is constructed and later gets integrated into the street. I'll also say that we took some attention to, quite obviously, I guess on the rendering, you can see that, to the outside room, not just to the box itself, the station, but also to the space that's created under the new viaduct and the new bridge. That really is the entrance room to the station. And there was an effort to make that comfortable and welcoming to the streetscape around it. So just throwing that out there for your information and interest.
Thanks, Chris. And for those of us that don't use pilaster in their everyday language, I call them columns. So, all right, well, I see a few more hands. I see one from someone we haven't heard from yet, so I'm going to go with that. John Lee, do you mind? I will ask you to unmute and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Great, thank you for the opportunity. Great presentation. I want to go back to the hole drilling for the columns. 2 questions. What is the estimated time per start to finish for each hole? And then second, how far apart are these pylons going to be?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, John. I'll take that one. Right now, they're spaced roughly 120 feet apart down the alignment. There are variations at stations and at cross streets, but it's generally 120 feet apart. And we're anticipating with the prep work at each foundation, including drilling and all the support features we have to put in to drill the hole. We're looking at around 2 weeks start to finish.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Thanks, John. Okay, looking back at the hands raised list, I think we're back to, oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go, I see a newcomer as well. Hak Tran, sorry if I'm not saying that right. Could you please unmute?
Hi, yeah, a question about also like kind of the existing signage and more specifically about the pagoda. That's like really kind of embedded within history from like the last 40 years, especially with like Charlie Sue being instrumental in creating that and vouching for that. Is that going to be sustained or moved, or like what are the plans for that?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Jesse, I can take this. Mr. Tron, so we're actually, along with the Asia and Argyle sign, the pagoda does not fit within the new aesthetic of the station, but we want to preserve it. So we're actually working very closely with, again, CDOT, the Department of Planning and Development, as well as Walsh Floor and the other stakeholders in the area to make sure that the pagoda is taken down and put somewhere along Argyle. So stay tuned, because the stakeholders that I just mentioned are working together to make sure that that pagoda is preserved and then taken off the station and repurposed on Argyle. We just don't know where yet, but it will be the same preservation as the Asia on Argyle sign that is on the west side of the station. Thank you. And Hawk, make sure that you provide your contact information, and when that process starts rolling, I can make sure that you are immediately involved.
Great, thanks, Jeff. I see a hand now from Lori Bravi. If you can unmute and go ahead.
Hi, I have a question about the parking app. How is that going to be handled? Do you have to make a reservation every single day? Are you at risk for not getting a spot at the garage that's already 4 blocks from your house? How is this going to work?
You'll have to make a reservation every time you enter the parking lot. You can't have a space reserved for yourself when you're not there. There will always be parking available. The lot at Nookie's is rather small, and that will sometimes be blocked by construction itself. So that particular lot might not always have spaces, but there will always be a space available.
Okay, so for those of us who may have a job where we can't be doing this throughout the day, and do you advise that we reserve a spot on before we leave work and get home, or even if that's at 10 p.m.?
I would advise that you make a reservation when you're ready to park there. There are going to be other neighbors who may use that lot during the day while you're at work for daytime alley closures. So please make a reservation as you are ready to park there. If you ever have any problems, you can always call me. ParkX has 24/7 customer service. We know what an imposition this is. So we're going to do everything we can to make the process smooth for you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Lori. Thank you, Marcy. All right, I'm seeing 6:51, so we've got about 9 more minutes. I see a couple more hands from people we've heard from again, but seeing no others, we'll go back to you. So Joe Machik, I'll ask you to unmute again.
Great, thanks. It's back to the question around the pagoda and the Asia and Argyle sign. Just curious, because I'm a resident who lives on Sheridan in Argyle, and there had been discussion about it being relocated there. That's just a concern of mine because I feel it doesn't fit in with the historic nature of the West Argyle Historic District. So, just wanted to know when we would be able to, as neighbors, have involvement on where that goes, because I'm concerned with it going in my neighborhood.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson here again. So I would encourage you to reach out to the 48th Ward Alderman Osterman's office to express your concerns. There's been no decision made as to where those the Asian Argyle sign or the pagoda are going to be going as of yet. But if you have that concern, I would absolutely strongly recommend that you voice that with the Alderman's office. And if you need contact information for Allie Brisbane or anybody that's in the 48th Ward office that's working on those specific issues, reach out to me and I can give you their contact information.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Joe. And Katie, we'll go to you. You can go ahead and unmute.
Okay, I appreciate the earlier comment about sound mitigation. And I had heard in residential areas, the max was going to be about 90 decibels. So I was just wondering, is that at track level that the measurement is, or do you do that further away? Could you just speak a little bit more to that?
It's at the property line. And it is it's not an instantaneous measure. I believe it's a measure over a period of time.
Anyone from Walsh Floor want to go further? Does that answer their question?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thanks, Katie. All right, I'm looking, I don't see any hands raised. I'll give it a few seconds to see. Okay, now there's one. Kathy Powers, I will ask you to unmute and you can go ahead.
Okay, this is for Ms. Chase. We talked yesterday about the 36 bus. Tonight, I'm late coming here because I waited an hour and a half for 36 bus to come. And I, being no fool, knowing after an hour and a half, I'd never be able to get on the bus. I have a very large walker. I have one of those stand-up walkers. So there was no way in hell that I was going to get on the one Broadway bus, and there probably would have been one behind it, and I wouldn't have been able to get onto it there. I was at Berwyn. I was at Berwyn. And so I managed to get my way down to Sheridan by walking and take the 147 bus north that ended at Devon, across the street, and take the Devon bus home, because I live at Morse on the Redline, but I can't use it because it's not accessible. You need more 36 buses. I gotta say it, and I'll say it again. That's why I'm on here tonight mostly. We need them badly. Thank you.
So yeah, I'd like to say a couple of things, Ms. Powers. I did pass along what you said the other night to our planning department, and we're waiting to get some more information. I would like to talk to you offline and work through this issue with you more directly. So I believe we have your contact information, and I'd like to speak with you tomorrow. Would that be okay?
That would be excellent. What time are you talking about?
I'll give you, I think we have your contact information. I will reach out to you in the morning. Is that okay?
I have things I'm doing tomorrow, so I need to know what time you're gonna call me.
Okay. You tell me what time you want me to call you.
9:30.
Okay, I'll talk to you then.
Okay, look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tammy and Kathy. And Kathy, just speaking from my own experience, I was just a couple hours ago, maybe when you were waiting just south of Berwyn, there was a car accident that was causing a major traffic snarl. So maybe that is something that was contributing to your delay on Broadway.
Probably.
Okay. I am not seeing any other hands at the moment. We've got a couple more minutes. Any last minute questions?
Jesse, if you don't mind, I'd like to make a statement.
Of course.
I would just encourage everybody on the call to support the local businesses on Argyle. There's a lot of great restaurants around the area. CTA is working really hard with the restaurants and the stakeholders in the chambers to drive business to those restaurants. And I can speak from experience about how many of the great restaurants that I've tried, along with my colleagues. So please, please, during this construction project, go out and support those local businesses. There's a ton of them and they could really use your help. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Jeff. It looks like we did get one more. I think there's about 3 minutes left, so this will be our last question. This is from Sarah Wilson. Sarah, you can go ahead and unmute and go ahead and ask.
Thanks, Jesse. Hi, this is Sarah Wilson, Uptown United. Thank you for the plug, Jeff, on supporting our businesses in Argyle. But a question I wanted to raise is, will this information, along with all the construction alerts, be provided in multiple language? We have, as you all know, a very diverse language set along Argyle and in the area. So I just wanted to raise that question to the group. Thanks.
Go ahead, Tammy or Jeff?
Sorry. Tammy, do you want to?
Jeff, yeah, go ahead. Either of us.
Yeah, so yeah, Sarah, we actually are working very closely with our translation services to translate as much as possible. So yeah, there are things that we are translating and putting them online. So this presentation actually is going to be put online very quickly. With regards to the languages, I can let you know what those are and send them to you as soon as they're made available to us.
And certainly if you have any suggestions about something we're missing, languages or specific types of outreaches, social media or various alerts, we're happy to work with you or any members of the community to address that concern. We have the bandwidth to be able to do it and are very interested in reaching all of the members of the community as quickly and efficiently as we can.
And Sarah, we've worked with Martin, as you know, Martin Sorgi and Chinese Mutual Aid for their assistance as well for translation services. So we really appreciate that. And if you could extend my gratitude to Martin, that'd be very nice of you. So thank you to Uptown United and all the help that you've provided us.
All right. Well, I want to thank the members of our panel for taking the time tonight to answer questions from the community. And then I want to say a big thanks to the community members that are here, taking time to engage with us, learn about the project. Again, please sign up for alerts. That's the best way to get to know what's going on from the construction standpoint in the neighborhood. We'll just put up our final slide just as a reminder that we're on social. Please follow us. And again, thank you for your time tonight. And we hope you have a wonderful evening.